What is going on? Welcome back. Third and 20 Dynasty Podcast, Season 3, Episode 21. Dude, see, we're getting there in the episodes when I had to do a quick peek to remember, like, okay, where are we? Like, okay,
Yeah,
Season 3, okay, 21, like,
they're in the
got
off
that.
season. It gets crazy.
So, what's going on? We got Lunas, we got Jake. How you doing?
Going on, lads?
Down horrendously.
Yeah, dude, that sucks. Jalen Hurts, I guess, is
No,
the end of the
not
first
just
news.
Jalen Hurts, but like him and Kyler in a 10-day span. It was brutal.
But yeah,
I went-
RIP to all the Jalen Hurts people.
Bro, I went from Hurts and Kyler to in 10 days Taylor Heineke and a concussed Colt McCoy. Like it's as down bad as it gets.
Hey, you better be putting that waiver claim in and using the rest of your fab for Trace McSorley.
I'm not. I probably should at this point. Yeah, you're probably
Yeah,
right.
you should.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I don't even know
for added context, for those who might not know, Jalen Hurts apparently going to be out this week. It's still up in the air. His status, he's got a shoulder injury, but the initial report was that he's going to miss 2 weeks. And then Nick Sirianni is like, hold on a minute, guys. Jalen Hurts heals quickly. He's got some like nine tails power, and he just heals faster than everyone else. So status is still up in the air. I'm playing against Jalen Hurts in like 50 to 60% of my playoff matchups this year.
Yeah, me as well.
Based on, because I follow, just as an Eagles fan, I follow a lot of Philly reporters online, or like based on like the vibe I'm getting, it seems like he's gonna miss 1 week, then be back next week against the Saints. That's my general guess.
I think it's very reasonable
from all the reports I've seen.
I think that could be a nice mutual agreement. He misses this week, all the Jalen Hurts people lose, and then the rest of us that don't have him move on.
That don't have him move
exactly. That's the plan. That is exactly what we want as someone who has Hurts in no leagues.
Oh man,
what's going on, Joe? What's going on, Skull? How you guys doing? Good to see you guys in the chat. All right, so actually in the first segment we had the Jalen Hurts impromptu. Bijan Robinson declares for the 2023 draft. I think you're not going to hear anything really bad about Bijan on this podcast or just about any other podcast in existence. The real question is, because he's clearly the RB1 this year, like
RB1. I mean, obviously, yeah.
Like compare him to Saquon and Zeke and Fournette and those guys like CMC. Where are we ranking him there is more of the question.
I think the best. Who came out sooner between Zeke or Saquon?
Zeke was first.
Sooner? Zeke was first. Yeah.
Sorry, more recently.
Okay.
Zeke was first, so Saquon was more recently.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think he's the best running back prospect since Barkley.
Oh,
those two.
Hot take there,
yeah.
I didn't say it was a hot take. I just think no. Zeke and Saquon coming out, I had ahead of Bijan. You just said where he ranked coming out. I'm saying he's third behind those two guys. I don't think he's.
I think what Frank was more so saying was, where do you have him in your dynasty running back rankings as soon as he enters the NFL?
Oh, is that what you're like? As soon as he enters the NFL?
Well, yeah. I mean, his comp isn't to anyone in this draft class in terms of like who you're going to rank him around, right? It's a similar thing with because he's going to come in as a fringe top. He's going to come in as like probably a top 5 dynasty running.
I was going to say top 3.
Oh, it's top. Listen, I think
given
top
the landscape
top,
right now,
top 5,
it's crazy.
Yeah, no, top 5 is the safe answer, but I mean, I'm sure Jake feels the same way. I feel the same way. I think after whatever order you want to have 1 and 2, after Breece Hall and Jonathan Taylor, I'd like to hear someone that you have over Bijan Robinson.
There's really
it's hard to find one, especially considering his age. He's going to be a rookie coming into the league.
I think. I truly think that Bijan Robinson has the potential to be the RB1 on day 1 of his career.
No, I think that's the more interesting question, because I feel like a lot of people think like, oh, like Taylor and Hall are 1 and 2 for entering next season, and then Hall could be up to 3. My question is like, Would you trade away Jonathan Taylor or Breece Hall for 101?
Yes, easy, done. See ya. You know why?
So you have well, I guess it depends if you're anticipating like Bijan plus and how much plus. But so do you have Bijan, like if you could pick any running back, say a startup draft. Say it was a startup draft for rookies and
Bijan should be the first running back off the board.
Bijan should be the first. Damn. I have him top 3. I don't know if I can go RB1. He's in my top 3 though.
The problem is that Breece Hall's coming off an ACL injury. Not saying it's the biggest injury in the world anymore. It's very common, but it's still an injury that takes time to heal. We've seen Saquon where it's really taken him 2 years to get back to the Saquon we knew. And I think that's something we're going to like struggle with because we really didn't get to see the full Breece Hall. So we might not know what we're comparing him to. We only saw a full unleashed Breece Hall for what, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks.
I think like a month. Like 4 games.
Right. It's going to be hard to really be like, okay, I don't know. He's playing all right next season, but is this the full him or is this, him at 50% or 75%? So I think that's tough. And also Jonathan Taylor just got hurt yesterday. I know it's not a huge deal. They'll probably shut him down for the year, but at the same time,
that doesn't concern me at all for next year though. A high ankle sprain?
No, but again, he hasn't played great. This Colts team is in flux, whether you want to admit it or not.
That's the bigger concern. Like in terms of just like, is the Colts a complete shit show to the point where like?
So I'm gonna go with the guy
in terms of scoring opportunities.
Right. So, and the only other guy that's even ranked that highly as a running back is Kenneth Walker at this point, and I thought that was a fraud RB1 to begin with. So at this point, I'm gonna say Bijan Robinson is the most complete back in the league at this point. Obviously with the likes of CMC, Saquon, all these guys that do both pass catching and running, and he's younger, and someone just spent a first round pick on him. So at that point, he has everything you need, and he's exactly what you want as your dynasty running back 1. That's it.
I think honestly, the only real person to question is Jonathan Taylor. I like Breece Hall.
Breece Hall doesn't. He looked.
The thing, yeah, he looked great.
He passed JT when he was healthy, when both were healthy.
Yeah, but I think even then that was ridiculous because I
think it was an overreaction.
Freaking Dameon Pierce was about to pass Jonathan Taylor at the rate that he was going initially, but he cooled off, and we hadn't seen Breece Hall play when the Jets' offensive line was kind of like completely banged up and different, and the status that's somewhat in more recently, and that offense in general that they're kind of in right now, where they like that team has all the momentum is gone for that football team.
Yeah.
And we saw 1 month of a good Breece Hall. We saw Jonathan Taylor have
entire season,
a pretty historic season. Yeah. So I think that he's the only person that I would question taking over the 101. And with the recent injuries and the fact that Bijan, like you said, checks all the boxes, I might lean Bijan. I think I would.
You know what's actually funny for me?
It's riskier, but whatever.
You know what's actually funny for me? I think he has, in terms of like next season, an easier chance of passing by the end of the year, by the end of next season, I should say, by the end of next season, passing Jonathan Taylor than Breece Hall. I know Breece Hall's
going to miss the beginning of next season.
ACL tear. I think he could be back by week 2 or 3 because the injury kind of happened early on. But
I forgot that. I thought it was a little later.
Yeah, it was kind of early on. So I think he might miss the first 2 or 3 weeks, but I think he'll be okay. I do think he'll be rusty for like the first maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it may be. Obviously, we've seen ACL tears that affect different people. Saquon, it took a year. We see, I mean, it's not running back, but like someone like a Chris Godwin, he started this year terribly, and then just recently, like as of 2 weeks ago, is starting to look like Chris Godwin again. So it took him pretty much a full year. It's just more so Breece Hall. Like it's not like he was doing it against Scrub D. I don't know, like how much you guys have watched like all of Denver's games, but Denver's defense is fucking good. And the last game, like he played
or
fully.
better before they traded.
Yeah, but the question isn't whether or not Breece Hall is good. The question is if he's the best running back in the league, right? Because I mean, I agree.
No, he's not the best running back in the league, because he hasn't played in the league. But he has the most dynasty value. Yes,
it's just because if you're gonna bring in the age value part, he's only 1 year older than Hall, with like not like a heavy workload. And right. I think he's a better receiver.
Because I actually think we're going to do a segment in the very near future ranking our top running backs, and we can
we'll do that all
the rookies in there.
We'll do that all off season. Yeah.
Well, yeah, especially with the running back landscape as it is right now. But we'll probably do that next week.
Yeah.
We talked recently in a recent episode, Matt Stafford, and kind of discussing him, whether he's a buy, whether he's a sell. Well, the short-term retirement news can be put to bed because he just came out and said that he's going to be playing next year.
Yes.
That may have still been the consensus, like what we think is going to happen, and maybe like a retirement a year after is definitely still in the cards. But in terms of, okay, if we said to panic sell and
Sparky, we have a dog.
What's the take there? What's the Matt Stafford take there?
We have a dog. We have a dog friend of the podcast. You see him on Jake's screen. His name is Sparky. He's adorable. Look at him.
Sparky disagreed with something I was saying.
He's got a Sparky.
I just want to know, was that by Matt Stafford or so Matt Stafford? I feel like Sparky was really passionate.
I think he was saying like "fuck out of here" or something. Like it was. It seemed like aggressive. No. What was I gonna say with Stafford? This might be the contrary take. I'm sure a ton of people who have Stafford saw that news and are like relieved, right? And I think league mates who maybe didn't have Stafford, I'm sure they saw that. For me, I view this as an opportunity to sell him. A good opportunity to sell him. That's what I figured you were going to.
I think that is initially what I was thinking as well, is that I don't really think this helps Stafford.
I guess it does if he thought, like, if he fully thought he was going to retire. But, like, for me, I'd more so consider it, like, a chance he might. But at the same time, so you got to realize with this Rams team, they have so many positions they need to fill. Especially if Aaron Donald retires this offseason, they need to fill up that defensive line. They don't have their I'm not sure if they don't have their first this year or next year. I know they have one of the two.
I think they have it next year, but not this year.
It's one of the two. But you need to fix your D line. You need to fix your wide receivers.
The thing is that Stafford could be traded,
bad.
Though. What about the trade? Because I agree. If all the pieces fall out, then he could be fucked. But
and also, what I'm scared of is McVay. I'm also scared.
Yeah, but what if they deal him though? Like if everyone goes, then it makes sense to trade him, and they can get their picks. And then what happens to his value? Then he could skyrocket.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie. Them trading Stafford is not a scenario I kind of envisioned. Maybe it happens. If it does happen, that changes everything, depending on the team he gets traded to and etc. I don't know if that's gonna happen. And like the fear of McVay leaving, the holes on that roster, the lack of draft picks, that O-line isn't gonna be fixed in one season. But people might get hype off of like, oh, he's coming back. They'll be back next year, all good when they're like they got their players back. I think I might take it as an opportunity to sell and just like see what I could get.
So right now he's valued on keep trade cut at about a late second. So he's definitely in the keep trade cut range if you just mass offer for a second and see what you can get.
Yeah,
I'm not going to sell at that. To be honest with you, I just think that's not worth having a potential high-end starting quarterback on your dynasty team.
If you're a contender, it's hard to sell for that price. Which I'm guessing if you do have Stafford, you are a contender. If you're not a contender, if not even that you're a tanking team, if you're like a middling team, like we're like you don't think you're winning a championship, I think it's an easy sell. Or obviously if you're
even at a late second though?
Not in the late second, but like so, when we say late second, we're thinking like 2022. Like I'd rather trade for a random 24 second where like I have no idea if that team's gonna be good or bad, then like sell for like a tanking 22 or 23 second. It's just, man, how much better is that situation gonna get over the next couple years? I think McVay is any minute from leaving. You know, like Fox is gonna offer him like what they offer Brady, a shit ton of money. They're gonna offer McVay a ton of money. He's already said he already said he's gonna retire when a lot of his guys retire. Aaron Donald almost did last offseason. I do think they might give it one more year next year, but I more so just view this as a sell. I would try to get a future second where you never know if it's going to be late or not. Maybe you can get a playoff team that was like a 6 or 5 seed to give up that second in the future year, and then you never know how that's going to go. I'm definitely not buying. I understand the case for being like holding on.
But that's the problem I have with selling right now is that who is buying Stafford? I don't think anyone's buying Stafford. The only people who are buying Stafford are the guys giving up the late second, right? Like that's, I think, the price point where you get stuck.
The contender who has Kyler Murray, who's going to miss a lot of next season, would be my first recommendation. Kyler's going to miss like the first month or two.
Right,
of
but
next season.
That Frank's right though, because that guy that you're talking about probably has a late second round pick. He's probably a contender because he had those guys.
But that's what I'm saying, a future second rounder.
You're just not going to get a deal for Stafford done right now where you're like, fuck yeah, that looks great on paper.
So, although it might not look great on paper, I'm not totally against it. Like, I just pulled up a random, 2023 rookie mock draft, right? And I'm just going to read you the guys that are 207 and on, right? That's a fair assessment.
I go to 206 and on.
All right, let's go 206. 206 is Tank Bigsby. If I can get Tank Bigsby for Matt Stafford, I'm doing it.
Yeah, I agree.
Zach Charbonnet, I'd probably do it. Zay Flowers, I'd probably do it. Marvin Mims, I'd probably do it. Hayden Hooker, wouldn't do it. Devin Kane, might do it. Like, that's what we're getting at. Is like you might do it.
So he's around like that 209 value.
Like if I could get Zay Flowers in the second round from Matt Stafford, yeah, I think I would do it. So it's just a tough scenario here. I think this draft is deeper than people are giving it credit for. I don't think all of them are going to be stars in the second round. I don't think we're going to get that. But I do think we can find some value here in the second round for a quarterback that doesn't have much time left.
I think in most scenarios on my teams, I'd probably just be holding Matt Stafford.
I agree. I think the problem is it feels bad. The problem is it feels bad. You can't, like, any person that has Matthew Stafford probably had a really good time last year.
He's one injury away. I thought this was the injury. And people who have Stafford should be thankful that it isn't. But it's just one more away. They're not going to fix that O-line in 1 year.
I think you're looking
with their
too
cap
far
space
into what the Rams are this season, more so than let's just look at Matt Stafford in and of itself. Like, Matt Stafford is not 40 years old, right? He's still got. I think there's a very realistic chance that Matt Stafford could be playing for at least 2 seasons. And if you look at his finishes, a lot of those seasons he's at least an average QB2. I don't want to give up a late second for that. Or give that up for a late second. Okay, yeah, if I'm a hard rebuilder, but if you're a hard rebuilder and you still have Stafford, then that might be more of the problem than
you should have traded them last summer. Yeah, I agree. No, I don't think I'm not going for the late second. I agree with you. I'm holding, but I would be open to the random 24, 25 second. We're like, it's maybe like a low-end playoff team now.
Yeah,
like some team like that, where if I can get their second a couple years out, you have no idea which way that's going to go. Obviously, each person in their league knows that team better in that specific situation, but that's more so the trade I'm going for, like a future second. And I think trading one for this year would be kind of foolish. So I agree with you in that aspect.
I don't know. You were liking some of the names that were coming off the board in the late second earlier.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of was up until like 208.
But there's a lot of time left, right? There's Tank and Charbonnet. That's it. Other than that, keep Stafford. Once again, though, with the rookies, this is a little bit of a dangerous game because we haven't had that. There's always those couple of guys that go massively lower in the draft than initially expected. Yes, there are some of the guys that go a little bit higher, but I feel like generally speaking, you see the rocks drop more so than, oh, this guy got picked in the second when we thought he was going to be a mid third first round pick. That only really happens if you're a running back with a crazy landing spot. But all right, I wanted to give a quick PSA. I imagine that he was picked up off of waivers some period over the last month in your league. But Rashid Shaheed, I'm actually starting to buy into Rashid Shaheed. And more so than just, oh, well, if you could get him for your fab, go ahead and get him. Now, personally, I picked him up in about half of my leagues for I think like 0 fab or whatever fab I may have had left. Was outbid in basically the other half. I think I would give up a third round pick to get a share of Rashid Shaheed. And that might be a little bit crazy and it might be an overpay. So there might be better ways to get into Rashid Shaheed. But when push comes to shove, if I have a third round pick and I think I'm a contender, man, I feel like the dart throw probability of success working on Rashid Shaheed is at least a late third, if not higher, with what he's been showing on an offense that's kind of had no signs of life other than Chris Olave.
If you can get Rashid, for a second half, third round pick, I think it's an easy decision. I'm making that trade any day of the week.
Really, I thought that Rashid Shaheed was going to be the classic. I bring him up, give him a little bit of hype, see if anyone takes the bait, and saying they buy him and be like, I'd sell him
for a later third. It's not like you're selling it off for like a late second.
I think I might give like any third. It's just let's say
a late third.
Not this year, like a 24 third. I can get a 24 third, and I'm a dude who collects draft picks of like any variety. And even I'm saying I'd give up a fucking third for him.
I'd give up the third for him. Like nothing like a 301, 302, but it's like if you think it's like a mid to later half third, I would.
I'm surprised. I thought no one else was going to agree with me. I thought it was going to get
No, I'm with you. Take. No, I mean, he's been producing. Andy Dalton is his quarterback. Do you see that offense?
Bro.
And he's putting up numbers.
This offense is going to pick up another wide receiver. It's obvious. I'm sorry. They
will.
Yeah. And Chris Olave is clearly the one.
The passing game The passing game will also be this week forever. This is one of the worst passing games.
They're gonna clearly take a quarterback. They tried it with Jameis. They said that's no good. They went to the most bridge quarterback of all time.
I mean, the hard part.
And now they're gonna take a quarterback.
They don't have a first round pick.
Their weapons.
That's the hard part. They don't.
Okay, so it's not in this draft. So I could see them taking a receiver in the second round very easily. You'll still get a great receiver in the second round. You could have Dalton, or you can get Jimmy G or some other bridge quarterback, and then when you stink again, then you draft the quarterback.
They're going to go full Broncos. Just load up as many weapons as possible, and then the next season you either draft or tract the quarterback in the market.
And honestly, no, I don't hate that plan either. Like if that's
and it's been proven to work. Just to times load your the Broncos the first time with Peyton Manning, that worked, and we saw it again with Tom Brady. So and Matt Stafford and the Rams. So it clearly can work, but the problem is every option of those, no matter what variation you do, that means they're loading up on weapons, and Shaheed's nothing. I mean, I think I'd pick him up, like you said. I think he's worth a roster spot for sure, but I'm not giving up anything more than a fourth round pick.
You want to give up a contender third?
If I was in love with him, which I'm not, I would say a third for a fourth swap is the best I could do.
That's fair.
The thing that concerns me with Shaheed is what's going to happen with Michael Thomas.
Yeah, Mike Thomas and any
Mike
other
Thomas
receiver.
Is legitimately still a really good receiver. He's just not in the field.
ever. I don't trust him to be on the field again. I'm not really concerned with Michael Thomas. I'm concerned with the fact that the Saints see Michael Thomas isn't going to play again, and they're going to say, we need a wide receiver. And then Rashid's, obsolete here. And I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that's just what's going to happen.
I do agree. Your bigger fear are the Saints drafting a good receiver who pans out in the NFL,
or just signing Juju. Like, what if they just sign Juju?
Yeah, I don't know, right? Like, and you can sell those types of players for thirds if you need to get your third back. Like, at least Shaheed has shown something. All right, J.K. Dobbins. So J.K. Dobbins wanted to talk about him really quickly. Yeah, he's looked really legit. I mean, to be fair, let's give some credit where credit is due. That Ravens offensive line has also been very legit in their run scheme and running attack in general. But J.K. Dobbins was kind of left out very recently. I think just a month ago, right before he came back, he was valued under a first round pick by a decent margin. On Keep Trade Cut, he reached about like 3,600, which for right now is around where a guy like Mike Evans is. So just in that range where most people aren't going to give up a first round pick for him. Well, now he's looking like he might be the second best running back from that class. And as of right now, the only running back from that class, him and Cam Akers, I guess, are the ones producing, right? Like with Taylor now hurt, Swift playing like just, I don't know what the fuck is going on in Detroit.
I don't know if I'm putting Akers ahead of guys like Swift, but with Dobbins, I agree with you.
But now, where does he go in the realm of the shit show that is current Dynasty running back rankings? Like, is he now jumped back in your fringe top 10? Has he gone that far? Because I know you're a Dobbins guy.
I am a Dobbins guy.
I am too.
My take is going to sound crazy to you. I know it's his first year back. The stats have been good. I'm talking strictly off of watching him. It's still not all the way there yet, in my opinion. And I don't know if he'll get that next year. I think he's been a benefit of just like some defensive collapses or some good plays by his O-line. And I'm the one who should be like bragging, being like, I've always been high on J.K. Dobbins. Look at him now; he's amazing. And I'm happy that he's getting his numbers. But when I watch it, like there are certain plays where I'm like, well, how are you getting caught up on that? How are you like not taking that for more? Like there's been an aspect where like as impressive as his numbers have been, I feel like there's still a lot of meat on the bone. And so it's kind of tricky because with injuries, like I said, we're not doctors. I don't know if next year all of that will get cleaned up, but like more so my first thought when I'm looking at when I looked at the numbers, I was like, oh, he's back. He's amazing. But then when I actually went back and watched like all of his carries and everything, it kind of looks off to the point where I'm like, I wonder if I could like escape and sell him for a lot. And again, I'm the Dobbins guy. I'm just saying he doesn't look like he did like fully healthy yet. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I'm not a doctor. If next season he's 100% again, and then he even advances on this, then he's going to be a fucking stud. Post-draft coming out, when he was a rookie, I was higher on him than fucking any. Like, I've always been a huge Dobbins fan. I've always defended them. I've always said buy him low. CC's come back. Like, I know the numbers have been good, but like if you watch him run, it just doesn't look the same. And I don't know. So I'm not like next year it could look the same, even though I know the numbers now are nice. Next year it could look the same. It's impossible to predict. That's what makes it so hard. It'd be kind of hard to sell Dobbins. I just don't know if I'm definitely not going out there and buying him in leagues like I normally was over the past year and a half, like trying to buy him.
Really?
Yeah.
So I agree. I think Dobbins has looked like he lost a step. You saw that on the big run this week where he just couldn't.
This week and against Pittsburgh, he had like the run on the right side, and like that's a run as a rookie. It's an easy touchdown, and he got caught up by like the 10.
Yeah, it didn't look good, but at the same time, I do think
if you look
like I said with Saquon is these injuries, some people just need a year, and like especially him, he didn't come back until like week 6 in the first place, so he clearly was a slower, healer. I'm gonna say it. He's just not built different like Jamar Chase or Jalen Hurts, where they're fast healers. But listen, he's put up good numbers. He's going to get healthier. He's going to have a full off season of strengthening his knee and getting back to where he was. I like J.K. Dobbins moving forward. I think he's a good buy, but the problem is I think everyone's thinking the same thing. Everyone's seeing him have 120 yards on 10 carries and go, oh, he's fully back. He's J.K. Dobbins. Why is he not running back 6 or was before the injury? So like, I think you're going to struggle to find a point where people are going to strike a deal.
That's the tricky part. That's
I don't know about it. I feel like Dobbins right now for a random 24 first. Like, which side are you taking?
I'm Dobbins, probably. I mean, it depends though. Like it a random one. So we're saying it's like 106.
Random.
So it could be anywhere 1 through 12.
Okay. Let's just imagine we're in a startup draft and you're getting a startup team's whatever, like Dobbins is going in like the 6th round or the 5th round and someone's offering you their first and 24 for the pick. It's generally random, but obviously it's probably not going to be the 101.
I think
that's
I
the
might
problem
okay, so can we say like 106?
No, it's just a random fucking first. It's not going to be 101. We don't have to overcomplicate that.
I said 106.
I probably wouldn't. I'd probably take the pick.
I probably would. That's the point Jake brought up. No, like I'm telling you, Frank. If it I don't know if you've had the chance to look back at him. I know the stats look good. The film looks worse.
Well, yeah. What are you taking? The pick or Dobbins?
You said it's completely random for 24.
It's a pick.
I lean the pick. If it's genuinely random, if I'm looking at the team and I think it's going to be like 9 through 12, 8 through 12, I lean that. If there's a chance that it's like 106, I lean that pick. But that's the thing. The injuries, it's so hard to it's hard to judge because I want to give him that benefit that like Saquon has proven us wrong. Like Saquon last year, he looked like the injuries had a toll on him, and then now this year he looks like a top 2, top 3, if not top 1 talented running back in football. So that's what makes it tough.
Yeah, I agree. It's really tough. I think it's a pretty dead even trade. I think like Skull, I would probably lean the pick, but there might be scenarios where I would give up that random first, more on the contendery random, but you never really
1,000%. I agree with you. If I think I'm a playoff team and we're like a top 4 contender, I'll give up that first for Dobbins for sure.
I don't know. Maybe it's just because I don't really care that much about running backs getting caught from behind.
Yeah, but it just didn't
but it's an issue when he used to not be as much.
Yeah, that is something that I didn't really consider as much before, so I'll agree with you on that. Which has changed my viewpoint a little bit. I think coming in, I was definitely going to take Dobbins over the pick, but the fact that you mentioned that was like, okay, yeah, you're
and
right.
I love
there.
Dobbins.
But the thing I'll say about Dobbins is that he looks powerful when he's running the rock right now, right? He looks more powerful than he did at Ohio State.
For sure.
And 2, the jump cuts are back, which is something that this Ravens offense kind of needed someone with a spark.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, that's what he has brought to the table, is that he's a guy, he can make that one quick move, get vertical in the run scheme, and can fucking go. Like, yeah, it's not as fast as he was. He's not breaking it like a Saquon or what we've seen from Breece Hall, for example, where they're breaking it all the way to the house.
Runs,
to me, I don't really care as much about that. And I do think that JK is back, and I'm going to lean the pick, but fuck, it's close. And if you can get anything on top of the draft pick, which I think in some leagues you might be able to, especially if we see these performances increase as the season goes on, come the offseason, J.K. Dobbins could easily be firmly back in the top 15 if he isn't already dynasty running backs.
I'll look,
and then be worth a
agree.
first plus, right?
Plus,
okay, it might not be a 2
and
plus,
again,
but give me that third. Give me that random flex-ish receiver.
I do agree. By the way, I do want to see my final take. My take with the pick over Dobbins is because we're talking like startup draft perspective where it's random. If you told me straight up that pick would be 108, I will trade 108 for Dobbins. And obviously any pick out. Like when it's like a random one, it's harder to judge. But if you told me it's 108, so AKA in your scenario that you were saying, Frank, if you believe that you're a playoff team and a contender, I think it makes sense to give up that first.
Okay. Well, speaking of contenders, okay.
Just for the record, Dobbins is currently at running back 18 and rising. He'll hit 15.
Yeah, he'll hit the top 15 in a week or two, barring anything catastrophic. Here's a segment that I wanted to talk about mainly because it's something that I've definitely had success with doing with my dynasty teams, and it's kind of been one of like 2 points of emphasis for me. But just in general, I think that a lot of the dynasty community needs to rethink the way that they contend, because I feel like I see 2 schools of contenders for the most part in random leagues that I've joined or in the dynasty and Twitter community when people post their contender teams, right? It's either one, you have the classic, they kind of have, maybe they did a good job in the startup draft, they acquired some good veterans, and then they traded a lot of their draft picks to fill in any gaps or give them depth or the elite players. And now they have, the classic, okay, they have like Kamara, Kelsey, Mike Evans, Lockett, like
Dalvin
that sort, the Dalvin Cooks, right? Like all those good producing veteran players, but you see that the gap is off. Or you have the other version where they're kind of coming out of a rebuild. They've stockpiled all these super highly valued young players and are now trying to win a chip. I feel like those teams generally are like a little bit better from the value perspective, but kind of fizzle out come the playoffs. And the other ones are usually the ones that actually win in the leagues. Mm-hmm. But to me, I think that the best contending teams are actually neither of those. And contrary to belief, where people are saying that you need to be trading your young players and your draft picks to go all in and win the chip, I think that when you are in a contender's shoes, and now more so than ever, I am focusing on the value game. And I just think that if you're going to buy points, don't pay up for them, get them cheap. And to me, that's been the whole point of emphasis in transitioning, whether it's a hyped young player or a hyped veteran, or what I just think is an overpriced veteran, trying to make any arbitrage value you possibly can. So, for example, what I did in probably one of my strongest dynasty leagues this year was a guy like Mike Evans. Keenan Allen, I thought at the beginning of the season at least, was in a similar boat, although I was not able to sell him. I thought Mike Evans being anywhere at or above a first-round pick was just clearly misvalued. I don't think Mike Evans this offseason should have been worth a first-round pick. I think it's one of those classic deals where you look back. For example, the pick I got for him is going to be 105 in the draft, and you're going to be like, well, shit, obviously I'd take 105 over Mike Evans, right? And to me, at the time, I felt like it was going to be one of those sorts of deals. I was able to get a first and a third, which was kind of hilarious. And as a contender, and if you look in a lot of like the Twitter and Reddit communities, everyone's going to be saying, well, you can't sell Mike Evans as a contender because you need those points. And I mean, at the time, I was kind of thinking as well, shit, I might be missing a top 10 receiver on the season in lieu of a first round pick trying to win a championship. But the thing is that it's not like, oh, I sold Mike Evans, I can't get another receiver. I just bought other guys. Bought freaking Christian Kirk for less than a first. I traded Gesicki in a second for Kirk in a third. Where if you look at their stats, I'll bring them on the screen at the same time. Oh, here's the doc. You get the behind the scenes view.
Speaking of Crazy made a trade this Crazy trade I made this offseason. It was with the team that I knew would be worse than mine. I traded Deontay in my first for Kirk in his first last summer.
So okay, here's Mike Evans' stats, right? You look at the last 3 seasons. I mean, he hasn't really been crazy. He's gone over 1,000 yards, but 2020 and 2021 just barely. He was kind of carried by touchdowns. Well, who did that remind me of? Christian Kirk, a guy who at least last season was just at about 1,000 yards. Trade off of Evans, which most contenders you'd never do, into Christian Kirk, who's younger and now this year having a better season. Another guy who I was probably wrong about was Gallup to trade into. But nonetheless, contenders need to sell players that are overvalued, even if they're scoring points. I think it's 100% the way to go about things. Being the guy who, okay, I have a better chance at winning the championship this year, but I'm hurting my championship chances for the next 3 years is never a good move. It's better to be a consistent contender than a this year winner.
I kind of fell into that trap last year in our home league, Frank, where I was coming off of winning the championship. I had a pretty older squad, and I said, you know what? I think I could run it back rather than trading off the likes of D-Hop and Adam Thielen and Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon and all these other older veterans that I had on that team that ended up winning. And now I ended up being able to sell off a few of them this season, but for a significantly cheaper price. And the other ones are just rotting away on my not rotting away. D-Hop's still putting up points, but you can't get nearly as close to value as you would have last offseason. So I agree, and I think it's what you're talking about is something that I've started to do in a lot of my leagues as well, and I think it's just a way to contend sustainably where you can continually do it for years on end and not just go all in, win one, and then just be in a complete disaster spot for about 3 years.
Well, you have a couple things going for you as a contender off the bat, which helps with this consistent contending theory. The first off is that your draft picks are better to sell than anyone else's if your team is good, because your draft picks are going to be late, but they still carry that brand name value of whatever round they're in, which even though people know your picks are going to be late, you will get a much higher price than the rebuilding team who we all know that 3rd round pick is going to be early. Because it has that 3 next to it instead of a 2, that there's way too big of an intrinsic price difference to dynasty managers that doesn't make sense. So that opens up a lot of avenues for you to make favorable trades. I think the one that I've taken advantage of the most is the classic. I have a guy, the guy who's done it with multiple times is Darnell Mooney, who's just not worth a 1st round pick. He's not. But he's kind of close to it. So what do? You slap on a contender second to that bad boy, ship the offer out to everyone in your league, and I'm 2 for 2 on it with Darnell Mooney in a second for a 1st. So you have that avenue to go off of, as well as when you have those players this year, Thielen, last year and this year, Lockett, you can buy those players that no one else can buy at cost. The rebuilders can't buy the Locketts and the Thielens for their draft pick value because they're old players. So you have the ability to do a move. I'll trade away my DJ Moore for a 1st plus. I think a realistic price you could have gotten in the offseason was a 1st and a 2nd. Both just contendery-esque random picks. And then moved into Tyler Lockett with that 2nd you just picked up, or a different 2nd, maybe a little bit earlier, so it's a little bit sexier. You could have gone into Thielen for probably less than a 2nd. And you look at their points per game, they're roughly the same, if not higher than a DJ Moore. So to me, this is how I look at contending now. It's, yes, I need to acquire good players to invest in, But once I reach that point, unless the veteran is a Cooper Cup level player where they're or Travis Kelce, where their points is just too much to let him go at their cost, then I'll keep him. But other than that, it's the value game. It's I'm going to transition all of my roster spots into the same guys that, or not in the same guys, into guys that score the same amount of points, but I pick up any value that I can in the process. And I don't give a shit about, oh, well, freaking he may have a different contract this year. Oh, that it's just okay. Is this guy been in the league for a long time? Is he overpriced? Yes, I sell transition. Is this guy a young player that's overhyped for his realistic profile? Yes, boom, transition.
Can I name 4 names for you two? Can you say if you're a contender this year, are you, again, obviously price plays a big part. Are you looking to transition, or are you like, no, I don't care, I'm keeping them for this year? And I'll say 4 names. I'll start with the first one, Derrick Henry.
Okay, I'm going to make a counterpoint to this whole exercise that's going to throw it out the window. The way to transition that I've found that actually works is you like it's guy dependent, right? It's player dependent.
Yeah.
Because Dalvin Cook is to me an example that I've tried to move off of that I just couldn't at a price that I considered reasonable enough for me to sell at. So if I can't get, let's say I only am accepting a first for Dalvin Cook, something that if you look at least it got to be reasonable on keep trade cut, which for a large part of the season it was. It might not be now, but from when I was selling them, it was. You go out, you made your price, you mass offer it, because that's how you maximize your leverage in these leagues. If you can't get that done, then you just fucking hold. Right? I had to do that with Keenan Allen. But as a contender, you're fine doing that because everyone's telling you to hold in the first place.
Okay, so, I'll bring up a name that's kind of similar to that. The first name I was going with was Derrick Henry, which I guess is kind of bullshit because I feel like both of you would probably say it like shot. I'll say someone else who I think is more of a tougher situation for a contender because I'm someone who's at this like kind of crossroads, or even I'm kind of debating the back and forth. Someone like a Tyreek Hill, if you're a contender, because Tyreek Hill, he's 28.
You have to. There's no doubt you have to. The thing is,
he might be one of those, like I said before, he's one of those players that just the return you get at the position is so much higher than the average player. And it's not just because of touchdowns, right? It's not like he's a touchdown dependent elite player. This guy is on pace for like 2,000 yards or something ridiculous. Like, to me, that might just be worth holding instead of selling. Whereas
that's what makes it tough.
That's why I like Mike Evans and Keenan Allen as more of an example. They don't have that insanely elite level upside, whether you like to admit it or not. They're very good.
The difference that I'm saying is like those two guys, as much as I agree with you, like contender, like you obviously want to sell to younger pieces. You're not getting as good a return. Tyreek Hill, even if you're a contender, you can get an elite return for it.
I think you still can.
That's
the point.
If you can
that's the entire point. That's the entire point I'm making because it's someone he's going to be 29 next season. He's starting to you see someone like Jalen Waddle right there with him, who's a young stud, and he's paired with a young quarterback, which even adds to his value more. He's going to finish top 5 or top 3 fantasy receiver this year. But at the same time, like he's hitting that age where it's 29, where it's like we've always said, like. You want to trade that receiver before he gets into his 30s, but he's still so productive.
No, it's not.
No, you could still get an elite return. For Tyreek Hill, you could still get an elite return.
For the record, Tyreek Hill is currently wide receiver 8 at 58.75, almost 5,900. Is
he
still
below Waddle?
Not anymore. No, he's above Waddle now.
Yeah, Waddle was a higher, but he had a couple of bad weeks. But Waddle is more the guy I'd rather sell as a contender, someone that
I mean,
because I think he doesn't.
I take that back.
Contender.
Waddle is wide receiver 6, and Hill is wide receiver 8.
Which, but Hill still, to me, I'd rather have guys Tyreek Hill at cost. because he is giving me ridiculous production. I'd rather sell Waddle, who to me is slightly overvalued, and maybe rightfully so. He's a super young receiver, right?
And he should be highly valued.
Been playing well. Yeah, but that to me is where like I can have a much easier time replacing Waddle's points per game than I will Tyreek Hill's points per game. There's like no one that you can replace Tyreek Hill's points per game with right now. No. He is the guy. Maybe AJ Brown.
I was gonna say AJ Brown, but yeah.
But okay, you have one dude. I can buy fucking a healthy Jerry Jeudy gets the same amount of points per game as Waddle, which is not true, but it's close enough to the point where I don't give a fuck because I'm getting extra firsts, right? The difference is not worth the price to me. Or the difference between Waddle and Tyler Lockett, I can get like fucking 2 firsts or something ridiculous. And okay, I can push my receiver problem off another year, and now I've got 2 firsts to solve it.
I have a question.
I'm not saying you can't.
Real quick, are you trading Tyreek Hill for Treylon Burks in an early second?
No.
Oh.
The next name I was going to list was Garrett Wilson straight up.
Because once again, I would trade him for Garrett Wilson straight up probably because I think that's a value move to me that doesn't add up. But unless I'm getting an overpay for Tyreek Hill at his value, I am keeping Tyreek Hill. He's the exact type of player I want as a contender. Yes, if I'm getting an overpay from a value perspective, then I'll take it because it's an overpay. You have to take overpays.
Yeah.
But I would much rather at cost sell one of the Waddles, the flashy young guys that get me less points. Mm-hmm. And I will net profit the difference in draft picks.
That's fair. No, I do
think I'm not doing it for is fucking quarterback. Don't do it.
I do think there is a strategy. Go ahead, Jake.
All I'm gonna say is like we're talking about guys like Waddle and stuff like that, where I don't like. I understand what you're going for, but I would do it more with the guys like this year's rookies, right? George Pickens still has a lot of hype. Love the guy as a profile, but he's at wide receiver 18. He's ranked above Debo right now. If I can get Debo for him straight up, yeah, I do that. Or even if I go down the list and go, okay, Pickens is ranked 300 points over Godwin. I'll take Godwin in a third for Pickens. Sure. I think that is the more way to trade rookies. Once you get into guys like, CeeDee Lamb and Waddle, those guys are valued that high because they both put up over 1,200 yards a season at under the age of 23. So that's why they're there, and that's why they deserve to be there. It's not
okay. I agree with both. I agree with selling the Pickenses for that price because there still is upside for them to go nuclear and go crazy.
There is
more
upside
times than not, they're going to go stagnant or down. And I just think there's more of a chance of a guy like that becoming a DJ Moore or lower than higher than whatever DJ Moore is.
Correct.
Right?
And same thing with like Christian Watson, same kind of deal.
But I think that when we talk about the Waddles, it's fine to hold him. It's nothing wrong. But to me, I just see a Waddle becoming a DK Metcalf where he's not going to go up. If anything, he goes down just a smidge, which is fine. It's not the end of the world. But if I basically have a guarantee that a guy is going to be ranked like at least 5 spots lower and be worth less draft picks, he's not as desirable because he's no longer the flashy new guy, I just sell him. You're muted, Jake.
I think it's fair on certain players.
No, I understand, I get that, and it works out, but DK Metcalf, I'd love to have DK Metcalf on every single one of my teams. That, let's be honest, he's a great receiver in the NFL. He produced with Geno Smith this entire year. I know Geno's played great, all the credit in the world, but he's shown that he's the guy that can produce without a quarterback now. And he had Russ and people linked him to Russ. And there's just so many reasons why DK Metcalf is ranked that high and why he's valued that high, because he's young still and he's putting up 1,000-yard seasons, 1,200-yard seasons with Geno Smith. So it's just like, yes, I can see you can transition out of DK for a less favorable asset and a pick, which is sustainably contending, I guess you can call it that. Once you turn that pick into another young receiver and do the same thing, it keeps it going. I understand how it works, but to trade DK Metcalf and Jalen Waddle, I would to me, you would want to wait until they're 27, right? They're at the peak of their career. They're ready to go off and be the wide receiver one on the season. Then you could trade them off, because now you can probably get more from the contenders. You could still get something from the rebuilders, because they're still right in that prime of their career, and you got to hold them from 21 to 27 and take that value in terms of the points that you got, and still sell them off for a lot of points. So I think you have to
I think the difference
there's a range.
Yeah, I think the difference between you and I is that I would rather sell, because DK Metcalf was at this point where he was at the Waddle range, consensus top 6 dynasty receiver, and you had these crazy offers you see in the subreddits where people are giving up mortgages for DK Metcalfs. But to me, I'm willing to not have him in the years where he's 23 and 24, and then when DK reaches 25, 26, reinvest. And I can get him probably at an entire first round pick cheaper by waiting just 1 year. I think if you wait 1 year from now, Waddle might be worth an entire first round pick less in value. Maybe not from where he was 2 weeks ago, because I did say to sell him 2 weeks ago on the pod when he was wide receiver 3 in Dynasty.
He'll bounce back up. But yeah,
he's already up at wide receiver 6 again, so.
And then to me, then you hold or do whatever the fuck, right? And then you're chilling. But I want to sell the players while the eternal optimism is still there, right? A guy like Allen Robinson, well, he can do it with anyone, and you just repeat that year after year. While when you look at his numbers, they were kind of just gradually declining, and then he goes in the worst situation he's ever been in. You sell on that. Mike Evans, similar scenario, probably the worst Bucs offense coming into the year. That, I mean, I don't know. That's just my opinion on the contender stuff. I don't want to necessarily get into the specific players, because that ruins the theory of the segment. But to me, that's how I want to operate my teams contending. That's how I have been. And I feel like the teams that I've focused on this mindset the most have probably been my most successful dynasty teams. All right, let's get into the next segment. Kind of on a somewhat similar note, what have you learned from this season playing Dynasty? I mean, I have a whole laundry list of them, but I'll start it off really quickly. I feel like I come up with this every year thinking the same way, but I still feel like draft picks are undervalued. And you go back and you look at so many moves that you make, especially in these startup drafts, because I wanted to really put to the test trading up in startup drafts this season to see if, okay, maybe I just got burned the past couple times I did it, or maybe it really is as not great as I thought it was. So in 2 startup drafts I joined this year, I made an emphasis on trying to make moves that I wanted to do trading up. And I just don't think it really works unless you hit a home run. I think at least 70% of the time, maybe 80% of the time, these moves where you're trading up or trading a bunch of young or draft picks, basically these firsts and seconds, to try and make these crazy moves, they always seem to blow up in your face unless you're getting one of the top tier, usually quarterbacks. But if you did it for Justin Jefferson, I imagine you're not too unhappy. But that's what I've learned, is just keep those fucking things and don't try to hit the jackpot necessarily in these trades where you're giving up so many assets for one player, or I'm giving up a second round pick to move up 1 round in the startup draft or something like that.
I think the biggest thing for me, I want to focus in on the rookie quarterbacks. And I think the overreactions both ways that come with them, whether it be good or bad, and considering situations. Jake, I see you looking at me confused. Do you know what the price would have been to buy Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence like week 3 versus right now?
It was a lot lower than it is right now.
Astronomically lower. Like it's not just lower.
Well, Lawrence isn't that much lower, but or higher.
No,
now,
Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence jumped from like quarterback 12 to like quarterback 6 or 7, whatever he's at now, and
That's
Fields jumped from like quarterback 20 something to around the same range as well. So Fields had a massive jump. Yes.
And so I think the thing for me, and a lot of people coming into that draft had Fields and Lawrence 1 and 2.
Yeah, some people did. Obviously, there was the Chase believer, or sorry, Trey Lance believers.
If I don't believe in the situation that they're in, for good or worse, I'm not putting as much stake into a rookie quarterback season, debating if I want to buy them that offseason or not. I think that's the biggest. Like I'm trying to think of something new for me this season that I hadn't already previously thought, and that's the first thing that sticks out with me. Frank, I know you dropped off for a sec. I was saying the price of buying both Fields and Lawrence now versus even just last October, like the start of October. And I think before a lot of the draft process, that was most people's consensus, QB 1 and 2. Obviously, some people put.
Wait, really quickly, just to clarify, are you saying that you want to buy more quarterbacks when they're rookies, or the opposite? You want to sell more? I'm confused.
I'm saying I'm letting the rookie year affect my evaluation of them less.
Okay, so you just don't give a shit about rookie years as much.
As much. It depends. Like, obviously, if someone's thrown into a great situation and they're not producing, no. But like, if someone's like
outliers aside,
outliers aside, where it's like someone how ends up on like a loaded team, for good or bad, like I'm not gonna like change how I view a rookie quarterback coming into the league as drastically. Like, if someone comes in and lights it up like Herbert did, that's one thing. But like, we see like stuff like, what has Mac Jones's perspective been from a year ago today till now? What has Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields' perspective been from a year ago today until now? Like, I think that's been the biggest thing that's been like, in terms of like a new lesson that's been learned this season. Like, it's been night and day with those guys.
I mean, like, listen, I don't think it's rocket science. Even like you're talking about guys like Trevor Lawrence. How about the fact that they went out and you have a healthy Travis Etienne and signed Christian Kirk and
but even
a bunch of other help. So like, it's not rocket. Like, sure.
I mean, Trevor I know. Those are big jumps, but it's not even like a big jump like what Miami did for Tua or what Philly did for Jalen Hurts. It's not like a Tyreek Hill or it's not like an AJ Brown. Like, it's just like a decent receiver.
Right, and those are the extremes, right? And not everyone can go out and trade for Tyreek Hill. It's just not possible. Only one team can go out and trade for him. Only one team can, draft the likes of Jamar Chase or Jalen Waddle in the top 10. Like, there's not, like, sure, obviously when you put a heavy investment into those weapons, you expect your quarterback to play better, and if they don't, they're going to get the boot really fast. That's the point here. So yes, the Jaguars did invest. Yes, Trevor Lawrence took the step. If he didn't, he wouldn't be the quarterback next year. Or that's probably a bit extreme, but like, he would be on the hot seat for sure. So like, I don't necessarily, and same with Justin Fields. Justin Fields was on the hot seat starting a half a season last year. And now, not that they got him weapons, but they got him clearly a coaching staff that uses him how he's supposed to be used and not like as a pocket passer. So like, you could even go to the argument of Daniel Jones. He looked very average for 2 years. This year, he's a quarterback 1, whether you want to admit it or not. He's quarterback 12 right now. So, like, he's had a great season under Brian Daboll. Like, I think the situation that quarterbacks are put in is oftentimes, underblown. For like, the point is, like, people expect the quarterback to just play.
I think that's a good point. I think you did a better way of wording it for me unintentionally than it is. I'm going to put more value than I normally had into the situation of, and I already did put a lot of value into situations that a rookie quarterback enters into. I'm going to put more
I don't
value,
think you
and
should
also
let that
also just giving them more time. Like, for example, for me now, after watching this season, I want to buy Trey Lance more than ever. And he's fallen in value this year. He's gotten what, 4 starts, 5 starts?
There's probably a buy window right now with the Purdy hype as well.
Now is the buy window.
Trade deadlines.
Now is the buy window.
Well, this is a really interesting topic for me personally because I have always been on like the quarterback is the king in Superflex. And I think a lot of people agree with
There's
that.
No
right?
doubt the quarterback is.
To me, I like to go budget and try to find arbitrage value and all that stuff on every position except for quarterbacks, right? I just, especially like with what Lunas was saying, and I think it's not even just not trusting the rookie year, it's just finding quarterbacks in the rookie draft that turn out and pan out consistently is really hard. Yes. The bust rate is one of the highest for any position that you can draft. If not, I think it is the highest of all the positions you can draft in the NFL and in Dynasty.
Quarterback's the highest. Especially for fantasy.
The bar to be good in the league and in fantasy is really high. So like, and this third point kind of goes in tandem with that. You kind of have to be just better than you were your rookie year to have success in the league. So what you are as a rookie, no matter what, you have to improve from that. So like that rookie season only means so much in the grand scheme of things. I'm honestly like very unsure if I'm really going to target quarterbacks and rookie drafts going forward.
And that's actually a good point with that. It might be the better move, whether you're like a little bit too early, a little bit too late, even if it's just after their first season. I feel trading for a quarterback once you're like able to see them, even if they had a disappointing year and like you're like, but I see the traits that I like I feel way more comfortable doing that because you have situations where it's like someone who drafted Mac Jones at like 110 last year felt like the fucking king of the world after his rookie season, being like, I just stole this like Kirk Cousins as a rookie. And obviously his situation this year has been shit. And I'm not gonna be the one to like shit on Mac Jones, but you're probably feeling way worse about that pick. Like it I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can play this game for every rookie not named Trevor Lawrence, where they have gone from being a franchise quarterback to being a bust at some point in their tenure thus far, and their dynasty values at the times respectively reflected that. These guys have gone from being under a first to potentially multiple firsts, all of them. Except for Trevor Lawrence, who's always had that floor.
Trevor Lawrence has always been, but like we've seen Justin Fields. We've seen. I mean, look at the 2 draft classes ago, Tua and Jalen Hurts, just even as of last summer.
It's a really interesting conversation
with the young quarterbacks
because, like,
I think that's the biggest thing I've this year. Yeah,
there's so much value to be made in these rookie drafts if you hit a strike, right? If you nail it, you fucking nail it, right? All these guys that took Mahomes in their startup drafts and rookie drafts, I mean, they're feeling great at the value they got. I imagine the Herbert drafters feel the same way. But at the end of the day, the risk is so high that I feel like I'm just so willing to pay the price when an elite quarterback is available that I'll pay it.
So question for you. You go back to that excuse me, you go back to that Trevor Lawrence, Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts draft class.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to say you take Trevor Lawrence at 101 still, but if you get to 102 now, I mean, I think there's really no doubt you should have been Jamar Chase, right?
I'm heavily trying to trade down.
Jamar Chase would be the front runner because you have
so like My point is, even like if it's not Jamar Chase, right? Even if it's the following draft class and the wide receiver one is
but I
Drake
didn't
London,
mean
right?
I didn't mean like Jamar Chase. You have Waddle there, you have Kyle Pitts there, you have Najee there, Javonte, etc. Devontae Smith,
right? But my point is, even if it's not the generational talent that is Jamar Chase, even if it's just a random receiver one in whatever draft class you want to say, a random one. Is it better to just sit there and at 2? And I know Frank said trade back, and that's probably the correct answer. But if you're stuck and if you just have to take them, do you go with that next quarterback at that pick, or do you just say, assuming it's the consensus pick is the next quarterback there, or do you take the wide receiver one and say, you know what, in a year from now, if both of these guys hit, I'll package a second with my wide receiver one and get that quarterback that I want, or I'll package a first with the wide receiver I just took, and now I'm sure that he's a quarterback that I want. Like,
the answer is always who's the better prospect at their position.
So yeah, I was gonna say part of my thing, and I think it's a very interesting question, Jake. I think part of my thing is you do really, to be like a good Dynasty fantasy football player, is being able to, like, at least at a decent level, evaluate on the college level, and actually, like,
for sure, like I'm not saying
take time look. No, but I mean, like, honestly, take time looking at these guys, because part of my thing is, like, I am not gonna let someone's rookie season, especially if they're in like a below average situation, completely make me throw away my college evaluation of them. And like that's like the situation where it's like guys like Justin Fields,
right? But like even to use this draft class as an example, right? We all know Bijan's going to go 101. Let's say you have 103, and you're sitting there, and Bryce Young went at 2, because I'm assuming that's your quarterback 1.
Yeah.
Do you just say, okay, I'll take my wide receiver 1, whether that's Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Quentin Johnson, whoever you have is that wide receiver 1, or are you taking CJ Stroud and just and playing the risk of what is CJ Stroud in the NFL? Or are you going to say, I'm going to take the guy that I know is going to be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL?
I'm just taking who I think is the best guy.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. We're like, no, but that's what I'm saying. No, because Frank, it's not overthinking, because not a lot of Dynasty players do that. I think Jake's making a good point, and he didn't say the final point in that, but it's like he was kind of alluding to it. It's like you have to watch these guys and have your own evaluations and actually be able to kind of understand.
I don't think you have to watch him or have your own. I just, if you,
I think you do.
First round, if you just take, because you can figure out from other guys that watch film or do data analytics who some of like the good players are and whatnot, and make your evaluations based off of that. But I think what I have fallen victim to, because this is almost a separate discussion now, but I'm fucking down to get into it.
Yeah.
I think the mistake that I have made in both startup and rookie drafts, and that other people make in both startup and rookie drafts, is we always say best player available, but when push comes to shove in our rookie draft at our pick, if we need a receiver, we're picking the best receiver. And it's because a lot of the time, who the better player is between the running back and the receiver oftentimes is hard to tell. So we always just err on the side of, oh, well, shit, to contend, I could really use receiver. I'm weak at receiver in this draft. I'll take the receiver. It makes sense.
Yeah, no,
but we need to stop doing that. We need to stop doing that, because if you giving up that extra 1.5% hit rate difference or ceiling difference or whatever the fuck the difference is potentially between two prospects to fill a position of need is just the wrong decision long term. And we were just preaching the other segment how gaining value as contenders should be more the move. It should be the same thing with how you draft.
I agree, but I think what's being missed here is, in my argument, is the fact that we just said it, is that the quarterback hit rate is so much lower, even in these first round picks, than wide receivers. If you're taking a wide receiver, early declare, all this early breakout age, first round pick in the NFL draft, all these things, the hit rate is very high, especially in recent years. Like, the teams are valuing receivers more and taking the ones that they want and specifically have a role for the most part. We've seen receivers come in the past 3-4 years and be very successful from day one that fit that criteria. So are you going to take the guy that you know is going to be a wide receiver 1, or are you going to take the guy that's the ginormous upside in Trey Lance or a quarterback like CJ Stroud or something like that? Is like, my argument is, down the road, if I wanted to then go out and say, okay, I have Jamar Chase, I could trade him for CJ Stroud plus, or like I can trade into that quarterback that I want, and I've seen now perform at an NFL level for my pick that I knew was going to be successful, and I don't blow it by taking the risk on him in the first place.
I think in that scenario, I would take the receiver. Because in that scenario, like, you've just listed a receiver that basically checks every box. I mean,
right. That's my question.
Like, if we're taking that as the receiver, is that it's a guy that checks every box, generational level.
The better question. I would definitely take the receiver.
The better question. But that's the problem. Is then you had drafts the past couple of years where we've seen Trey Lance go ahead of Jamar Chase. We've seen Justin Fields.
I think we were wrong. No, I was one of those people, and I think I was wrong.
No, well, first up, Jamar Chase now is obviously a superstar, but I still believe in Trey Lance. But no, I think a better situation. Let's just use this draft.
We've seen CeeDee Lamb go ahead of Justin Herbert, like the same.
No, I mean, that's true. But no, I was gonna say just say this draft. Like, how do you feel about guys like these 4 guys? Like, it's like JSN, Jahmyr Gibbs, CJ Stroud, and Will Levis. Like, how are you ranking those guys?
Well, I mean, that's a little tough because I haven't finished any of my. I haven't even done.
Yeah, no, we haven't gotten full scouting, and we will dive way into it more in the offseason. We'll have a ton of mock drafts, but like, that's the situation where it's like we have no clue.
Right, but so I think in that scenario, like, to me, it's either JSN or Stroud, because I'm not really sure that Gibbs is amazing at his position, where I feel like Stroud and JSN, yeah, they're not smash prospects, but both of those guys are pretty high-level prospects, and you could place them in any rookie draft,
level,
and they'd be in the conversation as a top 6 dynasty pick.
They all produce at an elite level. Yeah, I know. I think it's interesting. You gotta, again, I know you guys are saying you gotta like you can still listen to a bunch of guys on Twitter. In my opinion, you're gonna get a bunch of conflicting opinions. I think at the end of the day, to be really good at Dynasty, you don't have to have an elite level of understanding, but you gotta be able to, like, I don't know, just be able to evaluate at least on a simple, moderate level, and not overreact from your rankings too much. Based off, like,
if you spend a bunch of time doing scouting, like, and forming your own opinions and making studies, then you're right. You can't immediately deviate from them, because then what's the point of making them in the first place, right? You have to let things play out. I agree. I
think that's a big issue. Yeah.
But in terms of all the draft talk, I think, myself included, I have fallen victim to this, and this could be an added thing on the things that we've learned, not necessarily from this year, but all the years combined, is that all of this trying to do these crazy strategies for the draft, and, oh, this position is worth more than this one, and this one's worth more than this one, so you have to target this guy. Unless you have some wacky league settings where clearly one is crazy more than the other, you can fill positional problems in other means with a way higher success rate than doing it in the draft. The draft needs to just be about,
I actually agree with you,
who are good, who are just the best that they can possibly be.
I actually agree with you on that, where it might just be worth to buy a player.
So, like, yeah, and that's what I've been doing at quarterback with my leagues. And yeah, there are leagues where I've had to pay a pretty fucking penny for Mahomes, but I don't give a shit because I have Mahomes. Like, and if there's a position to pay up for me, it's worth trading for those guys when available. I mean, that's almost a separate topic. Fuck it, you guys want to get into it? We can get into that. How to buy quarterbacks.
Oh God, I don't know if we want to go into that.
We can save a segment. We can get.
I'll give a brief synopsis. How about that? I'll keep it in a couple lines.
Okay.
To me, the quarterback market is pretty simple. You can only buy the elite ones when someone's actively trying to sell, And if someone's not actively trying to sell one of those elite quarterbacks, that's how you lead up to these massive, crazy overpays for Josh Allen and Mahomes.
Yeah.
So you have to be patient. That's like I was waiting months to get quarterbacks at times in some of these leagues, but it's worth it in the end because you will save sometimes upwards of a first round pick in value.
No, I think that's great advice. The only reason I said to hold up to go for all of us to go fully in depth on that segment is because I want to wait till like the fantasy season is over and a lot of these QB values stay stagnant, so we can get better examples for over the off season.
We do have one more. What did you learn this season? Who's up?
That's me.
I said mine. Go ahead, Hank.
So the thing that I've learned this season is how to, I guess, contend with running backs. I'm gonna say. So I think I've really taken to the hero RB strategy, which is the fact that you get one really good running back, right? Whether that's McCaffrey, Brees Hall, Jonathan Taylor, you have one really good one, even down to the likes of, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook. You get one of those guys. And then your running back two can be a whole bunch of just piecemealed crap, to put it nicely. Whether that's Jeff Wilson, whether that's Cordell Patterson, whether that's James Conner. There's so many running backs out that put up points week in and week out through the NFL season that just go for absolute nothing. And when I say that, I mean like a third round pick maximum, maybe a second for a third swap if you're really desperate. You can get some of these guys really cheap and just piecemeal together your running back two, and then just play all the receivers you can, right? And then you're set. You don't have to worry about it. You can always find wide receivers if you need to go out and buy Tyler Lockett or another Jarvis Landry. Is not a great example anymore, but he used to be. All these veteran wide receivers that can fill your flexes for really cheap if you want to do that, and you have your star wide receivers playing the wide receiver slots, and you just piecemeal together that running back too, and you can make it work very easily. And I think it's just a simple way to contend without going out and having to buy two very expensive running backs or spend, high-end draft capital on two very good running backs. It's just, I think, a simple way to, bargain buy that running back two position. I don't think it's a way. I don't think you can do it with one guy. I think you have to piecemeal it. Whether that, like I said, with a bunch of guys, play the matchups, play the bye weeks. And there's always going to be injuries at running back. We've seen that this year with the amount of running backs that have gotten hurt, and you can always find guys. And I think that's another thing is you can look to, have the handcuff, have the Alexander Madisons and the Tony Pollards of the world that, when those guys get hurt, you have a running back now for the season. Like there's so many ways to simply make RB2 work without having to go out and spend, high capital on it.
Yeah. I mean, I generally agree with that. I don't necessarily know if hero RB is the best or the worst strategy in the world. It's a strategy that I do really enjoy employing. But it's not necessarily hero RB. It's more like, okay, you get your one stud and then everyone else you pick up at just good value, not even at cost, at good value. That's how I've treated hero RB. And one of the leagues that I did the draft, it's like massively panned out. It's probably my best dynasty team. And I agree with you in that picking up an RB2 is pretty easy. I mean, right before the playoffs, I think James Conner was like an easy smash RB2. The guy was playing like 90+% of snaps, and you could definitely get him for less than a first. So
right.
Why not as a contender? I give up some fucking seconds or some schmucks or whatever, right? I'll just trade into him. Who cares? Man, running backs are really interesting because I think I am starting to agree with the consensus that your bench should just be random-y kind of running backs, and
exactly
over the course of the season, you're gonna get offseason, just collect them. Yeah, you like, and the barrier to entry to be a successful running back is just how many times do you get the ball, or do you completely suck? Because like anyone that gets the ball 15 times at the running back position, as long as their offensive line isn't the worst in the league and they don't completely suck, then they'll be startable in your flex spot, like 100%. So, but I don't think that necessarily like completely invalidates going running back heavy in drafts. I still think that that's a viable
I don't think
strategy. It might be risky, but it's viable.
Obviously, like if you have the pick where, like, you know, where Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be picked, you take him, right? You don't just because he's a running back, don't take him and buy James Conner. I think that's silly. But like, I'm just saying, if you're, you know, coming out of a rebuild more or less, or even as a contender, and you just don't have that running back heavy team, you're more centered around your quarterbacks and your wide receivers and stuff like that. There's ways to go about getting that running back to production without paying up for it, is all I'm saying. And I think I've learned that this year more than anything, just with the amount of injuries and the amount of, you know, Samaj Pirines that we've seen this year and stuff like that, and Jeff Wilson's, and, you know, Bam Knight on the Jets. Like, we've seen a bunch of guys this year that you could have got for nothing, fab fourths in the offseason, and it's really been a productive way to fill in your RB2 week in and week out. Obviously, if you have those guys, you know, the studs, I'm not saying go and trade them and do this, but it's just another way that I've realized you can get some value.
I mean, just to go off of that point a little bit, I've had a good amount of success taking running backs in the back half of drafts, 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, and then selling them for 3rd round pick at the minimum plus. And I mean, this is part of the game, trying to differentiate who the really talented running backs are and the ones who are going to pop versus like just the ones who are going to fizzle out, right? Because I mean, I sold James Robinson for a 3rd after drafting him in the 5th before he even played, which at the time I thought was a dub, ended up not being a dub. I sold Ramondre Stevenson for 2 seconds this offseason because I thought that was like transitioning a 3rd round pick into multiple seconds. So like, it does bite you, but at the same time, all the Chuba Hubbards and guys of that nature, like when the starter goes down in CMC and they get their opportunity, a lot of these guys become viable. And then because they become viable, you can then sell them for more than you picked them up for. So like, not only I feel like, is it potentially good if you're trying to score and have guys just to fill in your running back spot, just acquiring these guys, there's easy value avenues to sell them if you're looking to gain value, not just, you know, compete by having a bargain buy list of RB2s and RB3s.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Are you selling while we talk on late round running backs who like someone might have hit on and been able to sell at a higher price? Are you selling Pacheco for like, whether it be, I'll go for the, I don't know, 210 to 303 range?
I mean, I would have sold.
I think he's worth more than that now, to be honest with you. But that's just.
But are you trying to sell him?
Yeah, I'm trying. I mean, I would have mass offered Pacheco months ago for a 2nd, and it probably would have been accepted, and I would have been a little bit unhappy because I could have got more.
You probably
he's high, dude. He's worth a good amount. He's worth like an early 2nd right now on Keep Trade.
That's what I'm saying. You could still
he's
get a
at 3,700. Yeah, he's valued like right around Kirk Cousins, Alvin Kamara.
That's absurd.
Deontay Johnson.
That's absurd.
Yeah, I'd be selling. I
was thinking late 2nd. But yeah, I know. I think that's the Keep Check Out reactionary price. I think the actual price would be closer to what I said, like the late 2nd. And I think even then, I'd still sell at that late 2nd.
Did we update the sheet?
I don't think so.
Maybe.
Shit. We may have to postpone the Dynasty stock market. We're gonna have to figure that out.
Who's updating the sheet?
I mean, I'm just not gonna be able to do it quickly enough, I don't think.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna fuck something up.
Yeah, it's all right.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it from us here.
We'll do. What are we?
We may just have to do the Dynasty stock market tomorrow.
Yeah,
I'm do it for a week.
I can do it.
But nonetheless, if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. It sounds like we're going to have the Dynasty stock market tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, tune in. I'll throw out a tweet about that. So follow us on Twitter at 3rd&20 _. It's the numbers. So like 3RD.
And 20.
Yeah, and then 20 as in the numbers 20 with a little underscore at the end. Yeah, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Peace out. Have a good one. Good luck in your fantasy playoff matchups.
Yeah, good luck to everyone. I am sad with all of you who have Jalen Hurts. It's heartbreaking.
Why?
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.